So we're going to try something else also with this call. We are going to live stream it. So if you prefer for your face not to be shown on the live stream, feel free to switch your cameras off. And then your face will not be seen on the replay either. We are recording this also from now. So once again, if you don't want your face to be shown, please kindly switch off your camera. But there are some people who aren't going to make it today to join us live, and we've already received some requests for getting a recording afterwards. So once again, we are recording and live streaming. If you prefer for your face not to be seen, feel free to switch off your camera. All right, that's the recording and streaming disclaimer done.
I just want to say, I guess, welcome to this group. George and I discovered when we worked together that we share this common brain trick of perfectionism. And it's such a sneaky beast. It manifests in so many different ways. And one of the main ways that it manifests itself is in, you know, because you think that nothing that you do is good enough, you think you can't possibly be a perfectionist. And I've found it so helpful to check in with George. And so we've been doing this, I don't know, pretty much every week for a little while now, haven't we, George?
Yeah, about a month, I think. Maybe 6 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and some of you know both of us. A few know each, but not both of us. We won't use much time today to introduce ourselves, other than to probably say we're both coaches. And we work with leaders, organizations, and leadership teams. But more importantly, we work on ourselves. And in particular on this specific trait of perfectionism. And we had a prep call yesterday, and perfectionism was rampant in both of us yesterday, and we worked through it together. But this weekly call, as Sam mentioned 2 weeks ago, the call that we did, was a complete turnaround for me. I had worked myself into a box. I became just a shell of myself on autopilot. My performance drive of my perfectionism took over, and Sam helped me get out of it. So I'm very grateful for this accountability relationship that we have, this partnership. And today, what we're going to do is show you what a conversation like that is like for the two of us. The difference is that for all intents and purposes, our conversation today is public. So in terms of vulnerability, we will aim to practice proportional vulnerability. When just the two of us are talking, we can get very, very deep, and there will be a little bit of a filter, so we won't get quite to that level of depth. But we're gonna still be very candid with each other and see where it takes us.
And we feel this is an important conversation for two reasons, really. One, just on this human level, because in my career, you know, I didn't go to the fancy business school. I, from kind of pretty much nothing, worked my way up to director in a bank, in a large investment bank, which was something that I was really happy about, and I guess proud about. And that's where I think for the first time I really realized how perfectionism just cut my feet away. And so the aspects of this are, you know, on one hand, very personal because they affect us, they affect our career progression, our relationships, our life, but also as leaders in leadership roles, like where we have, where we interact with other people, and maybe where we have teams of people that we work with, maybe teams of people that we lead. It's really important to recognize the signs so that, that you can help provide the kind of supportive environment that can help those people be their best. Because it's really interesting, patterns of productivity that help most people have the opposite effect on perfectionists, and it drives them absolutely into procrastination, into burnout, and into, like degrees of mental anguish that, frankly is just unnecessary. And so I think this is a bit of a hidden secret condition. And so that's why we're sharing this and making this a bit public.
Yeah. All right. So I think without further ado, shall we get into it, Sam?
Let's do that.
All right. So we're going to take a deep breath just to zone in on each other. And as we're going to pretend that we don't have an audience, so we can be really together in this conversation and focus on each other. Okay. What we haven't agreed was who's going to start this time.
Yeah, I know.
Okay. How has perfectionism treated you since we did our last check-in, Sam?
Oh yeah. So in the last week, well, there's two ways that perfectionism. I mean, I've had this big realization in the last week that one of the ways that perfectionism shows up for me is actually in relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And also, actually doing this event was like a massive trigger of perfectionism for me. But I wonder,
what was it about this event that's triggered?
Like putting it out there publicly. I've had this fear, which I think you've all seen that I've overcome a little bit, of actually putting out my real thoughts and perspectives out on LinkedIn. But this is like amping it up one level higher, right? It's like actually really showing up publicly. And quite honestly, it's the fear of, like the fear of judgment. Who is she to do that? Can I hate it? Is it going to be rubbish? Like, is it good enough? Am I even good enough? Oh. And the thing is I know that this is like a trick. It's like a trick of, I know it's like a trick of the mind.
Mm-hmm. What just happened in your body there? You had this, what was that?
It was, because this is also how it manifests with me. I start beating myself up. Oh, no, this isn't real. Oh, why am I doing this again? And like the physicality of it, of, like when I'm using all my smarts to kind of direct my self-talk in a direction. And yet, the way that my energy is affected, like the physical feelings that I have in my body. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And the talk, when you directed the talk, how did it shift the sensation in your body?
As you say that, like, because when you're talking about the sensations in my body, it helps me connect back into my body. And actually that's something that I find hugely helpful, because instead of arguing with myself in my head, if I just let go and just connect back in, that does really help. Let go of that narrative.
Yeah. I'm just realizing that I don't really do enough of that myself. I'm very heady.
How does that headiness show up for you?
I'm always reminded of what's that? I'm trying to remember the name of that film where it's like the body is being pulled, but essentially is disconnected from the head, and the narrative is spinning. But the narrative is always there's so much confirmation bias happening. And what happened for me in the last week is we went on a trip, and we had some people from outside our area join, and unfortunately they contracted something on the way, and everyone got ill except for me. So there was a period where gradually more and more there were more people ill than healthy, and then the last healthy person got ill except for me, and then the first ones who got ill started to get healthy. But there was a period where I just had to take care of things, take care of people, take care of everything, and I went into the same mode that I was in during lockdown, where we had no childcare. It was just my wife and our baby, and we had to juggle work and childcare and housework, and there was just no break. So my performance drive just kicked in and said, yeah, I must do everything here, the best at parenting, the best at being a husband, the best at doing the housework. And it ultimately, that pattern came up again during the week. But yeah, I was so driven by my narrative that even now, over the last few days, when almost everyone is healthy again, I'm finding it difficult to pull back and give space for people to chip in and help and just do things. And I'm only starting to realize, as I'm actually slowing down yesterday when we were talking and today, that I'm stuck in this mode. But the self-talk is always just you got to take care of everything because everyone's ill, and you got to do it and push. But now my mind is still saying, yeah, but they haven't fully recovered, so I got to keep going. And but then, and on the other hand, this shoulder thing, and there's this other voice of me saying, well, see, no one is doing anything, no one is helping, it's all up to me.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm not giving anyone any space to really do that. I'm concerned what the impact is on the relationships with the people.
I so resonate with that. And that's definitely part of what's happened to me this week, right? Because I think this is the common pattern, right? Of like the impossible standard. It's like everything has to be done to this perfect standard. And the thing about the perfect standard is it's actually bottomless, because like to put this session together, everything gets too big, doesn't it? This is what happens for me. Everything gets bigger. It's like we're not just having the conversation that we have every week, which is magical. It's like, what are everybody else's expectations? And then what's everybody else doing? And then how do we make that better? And then exactly what you're saying, which is, but also this family stuff. We have my mum-in-law staying, and I really love her. And how do I balance doing this whilst also giving her the most amazing experience? Because I'm working and she isn't. She loves cooking. So how do I make sure that she can get all the ingredients? How can I make sure that everything is perfectly in place for her? Everything. I'm finding it hard to even find the words to express, to kind of to let you in on what's happening, because it's to be able to do this one thing, now it's not just the one thing, it's the 27 components of that thing that have to be done. And this is, I think, what drives us to, it drives me to feeling paralyzed, or definitely it drives me to feeling burnt out, because it makes the one thing just too big. And I think that's the reason that I so resonate with Agile, because it's like just how to slice things freaking small, you know, to just do this one thing.
So how do you stick with the one thing then?
The one thing. Well, what I've come to realize through our sessions, and today now this is a big part of it, is actually about taking action. So coming out of the narrative, I'm very good. You know, one of the things, like some of you will know this about me, is, you know, like I lead like mindfulness.
No one else here, Sam, it's just you and me.
Just like, you know, that I lead mindfulness meditation groups, so I can do that mindfulness thing. But what I notice when this perfectionism strikes, I actually have to get out and do something. I have to get out of my own head. I can't, like, sitting, meditating, like, doesn't actually help. There are other forms of meditation that help, like meditation, like being mind training, but like I actually just have to take action. And what I've found is like doing a small slice of what it is that scares me.
So what's happening for you when you do that slice, that one small thing that scares you?
Do you know what it is? I still feel those sensations of the fear of judgment. I still feel that, you know, that sense of shame, actually, of, I don't think this is good enough. But by putting it out there through the repeated pattern, what I'm learning is every time that it's better to do that, because either the response is really good, I even nail it in one, or I get feedback that helps me do the thing that I'm trying to do better. Because what I realize is, like, these, I think we've said this to each other before, but it's just so, this is why it's a trap, isn't it? Because it's so counterintuitive. The thing we're trying to achieve with our perfectionism actually has the opposite effect unless we let people in. Unless I say to my mum-in-law, like, oh God, I feel like I'm working too much and I'm not getting to spend time with you. And it's, you know, otherwise I just get into this really anxious state and my energy pushes her away. Whereas when I say to her, oh, I'm working too much and I'm not spending time with you, she goes, it's okay, darling. Like, I'm watching my TV shows. I in any case, I want to see this. And by the way, I'm doing my hair. So just leave me alone for 2 hours. It's fine. No, don't have to be this perfect daughter-in-law.
So that's your process. You identify the one thing. I'm just trying to sort of analyze it and play it back to you to see whether I got the pattern that you're following. So at first, you know, you see something that you need doing in your head. You also think about all the other things and the perfect version of that in your mind. And then coming with that is the sense of overwhelm and fear of judgment and everything. And you notice it, take a moment, slice it down back to the one thing, and you do at least the first step of doing that. Whilst you're doing that, you're experiencing a portion of that fear. And then after you've done it, is that when you do the processing that you just talked through?
That's it. That's exactly the pattern. Yeah. And I think I'm getting faster at spotting, like, because now I realize as soon as I'm starting to feel overwhelmed, I know I'm making it too big. As soon as, like, now I can use overwhelm as the trigger. Like, as soon as I start to feel like, oh God, this is too big, you know, I can use that as the trigger. And what I've just realized as you played that back to me, and this is what links into the perfectionism in relationships, is that in every case, I think, like every case, everything. But what I've just realized is that it's letting people into what's going on with me, instead of trying to hold this, instead of trying to be perfect. Actually, if I just let people in, not into everything, even just to one little part of what's going on with me, that really helps.
Acts as a release for you.
Yeah.
So what is it releasing?
Oh, pressure. And you know what? It actually really helps drive connection. Because something that, like a really clear example I can share about how this perfectionism shows up in relationship. I know this isn't a work example, but you can imagine the parallel. So I really feel like this is self-generated. My mum-in-law is amazing. She doesn't put pressure on me. But I put myself under all this pressure to be the perfect daughter-in-law. Right? She's Pakistani. I know she's like the archetypal mum. She wants grandchildren, right? She has them, right, through other members of the family. But, you know, I couldn't give that to her. And I built up this whole narrative in my head about, you know, how useless I was as a daughter-in-law. And it was really getting in the way, because it manifested in the way that I couldn't actually phone her, because this thing of like, I can't be the daughter-in-law you want me to be, just got in the way.
So your narrative.
My narrative.
Your internal narrative.
So this thing of letting her into a little part of it is, I actually had a chat with her, and I didn't let her into the whole mess of it all, right? The whole depth of it. But I just spoke to her and said, listen, I'm struggling because, like, I feel like you expect this of me. Is that true? And she was like, darling, no, just call me. I just want to hear what's going on with you.
Yeah.
Just call me on Fridays.
Yeah.
You know, and so again, like, I don't have to deal with this whole massive thing of what I believe I should be, because that's all mine. It's nothing to do with her expectations of me.
Yeah. I think it's really awesome that you just asked the question.
Yeah.
What something you said again struck me, and it's not, I think it's not the first time you mentioned it, meditation. So I do mindfulness training. I attempt, if I don't sit down with circumstances and everything going on, I still, as I do certain tasks that allow me to do it, like washing the dishes, I try to practice at least. But for me personally, that's really valuable. That's a way of slowing down and actually getting out of my head by being more conscious of what's in my head, and acknowledging the thought, but ultimately letting go of the thought and providing stillness for my mind.
So how does that pattern work for you? If you can just play for me. So when your perfectionism hits, so you were saying before about being in this thing of being the perfect dad and doing all these things and being around the house. Yeah. So then when you find yourself mindfully washing the dishes, what happens then?
Well, it's more afterwards, because during I'm using it to really clear and actually not think about anything and just be with the dishes. be with the dishes and focus very much on the sensations of the water and the texture of every dish and every piece of cutlery and so on and so forth, and just be really present and not think about it. The processing, the analytical processing, if you will, happens for me afterwards, where I'm then thinking, hold on, let me actually take a look back, how I've done all of this today, and with whatever is left of the day, can I slow down? And the answer is always yes. All right. Let's slow down. Yeah. So this is going from, and for me, a new formula that worked out is, how can I work out as a perfectionist how many breaks I need in a day? Well, I let my perfectionism drive me with ultimate performance for as many days as I can sustain. And then I'm completely spent. And then I need to work out how many days it takes me to recover. And then I simply look at X days of full performance, full steam ahead, work, do, and then to complete self-destruction. And then how long does it take me to recover? And then that percentage is what I actually need to do every day in terms of breaks.
Oh, I love that.
It's not a very healthy way of getting there, but it occurred to me the other day.
Yeah. So what is
how few breaks are enough breaks that I can allow myself to have? Yeah.
But this is such a massive thing, right? Energy management.
Yeah. So we're about out of time for today. Normally we keep going for a little while longer, but otherwise it doesn't quite fit into the 45. What would we like to say to each other in order to close our check-in today, Sam?
Well, I want to say thank you for sharing, George, and thank you for holding that space for me. I think that was really powerful for me. Thank you.
My absolute pleasure and privilege. Thank you, Sam. My big reminder from what you shared with me, thank you, is to talk more about this with the people who are close to me.
My big takeaway from what you said, there's been a few, but this thing about taking more breaks in the day, I'm going to experiment with some things around that. Thank you.
Good. So what's your thing to do on about what we discovered until next time? Is that it?
That's it.
Breaks. Yeah. For me, it's the checking in with the expectations of others.
Yeah, so powerful, and it works in every situation. Yeah, I can't wait to hear about that next week.
We do it with teams all the time about roles, but it's one of those things that is equally powerful also in the personal space. Okay, let's shall we take a deep breath out of our dual space and see whether there are any comments or questions. All right,
open into the group.
Good. So I have not paid attention to anything if there was anything in the chat. So let's see, have a quick look-see. In the meantime, if anyone on here has any questions, feel free to formulate them. If you want to talk, share, say your question, speak your question.
Yeah. It doesn't have to
write your question.
I mean, we also said we'd share strategies. I mean, I think we sort of shared things as part of our chat. But if there's anything, any particular ways that perfectionism manifests for you, and any questions or anything that you'd like us to speak a bit more about, maybe, or
loads of very kind words in the chat. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Yeah, welcome. I think one thing for me, and the reason I was interested in this particularly, is we talk a lot about, in Agile, we talk a lot about just enough. Do what you need to do and get the feedback before you do any more, because you're going to waste that effort if it's not needed. Perfectionism is almost the antithesis of that. You kind of get to a point of you want it to be right. Listening to you talking about this, putting this event together, you want it to be right. You worried more about other people's expectations and views and what that was going to happen. And yet you actually grew it from something that was really working very well already. So the just enough bit was already there and perfect. and you thought there's going to be a value to everybody else, which I personally, I did get a lot of value today. And I think wanting to share that, you missed a step in my head. You've jumped straight to the perfection bit, saying, right, we're putting an event on. It's just got to be, 5 stars. Everybody's expectations have got to be met. Oh, wait, what are those expectations? Oh my God. And then suddenly, but what you've done is you've gone away from the just enough. You've now changed the meaning of it. And I think that's a scare we all have to be careful of. Remember the agile approach. Sorry, I'm preaching, but you get
what you just said is very, very similar to what Sam and I went through yesterday in our preparation. So yeah, spot on.
And actually, from the beginning of this project, from the beginning of us choosing to collaborate this way, and this is the thing about perfectionism, right? Do you guys recognize this? That like that yardstick of enough, of like good enough, of what is enough, like it's broken. Like our internal one, it's broken. I've worked with people, I have friends who, I've got an amazing friend, and she's got a really, like her yardstick of enough. Like if she wants to lie on the sofa all day, she does these things called lock-ins, right? And she'll go, I need a rest. My phone's off. I'm Netflix and chilling all day in my pajamas. Oh my God, I could never do that, right? Why can't I do that? It's not because I think there's something wrong in doing that. It's because I've got this yardstick that's going, oh my God, you must do, you must do, you must do. So it's, so I think it's like how we, agile is very powerful for that. It's how we fix this broken yardstick.
Sam, I hear you, and I hear you saying it's broken, but really for me, it's an internal thing. It's your view of that stick from somebody else's perspective. You're thinking, like you're talking about your mother-in-law and your view of what your mother-in-law was thinking of you, without asking her, without talking to her, without understanding. One of the things we'd say is find out. Don't assume. Don't, because all you're going to do is eat yourself up, and your yardstick will be more than broken. It'll be splintered. You need to think about, leave it as it is, go out, find out, and then strengthen it. It's almost like a self-confidence thing. I'm not saying you lack confidence in any way. I'm just saying you need to believe in yourself enough that don't worry about what other people think of it. If they find value in it, you've hit the right tone, right?
Yeah,
that's the quest.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Yes. Sorry, I just
that second nature.
I don't like this view that we feel we're faulty if we go down that path. I'm like you, Sam. I could not sit and do Netflix all day, much as I love Netflix. I feel really aggrieved at the moment because I feel like I'm not productive enough, and so because I'm not actually earning, but I'm putting on paper what I'm doing. I'm talking to people. I'm still doing coaching sessions. That I'm still trying to keep my head in. Not because I'm worried about losing the skill, because I think some of it's natural, but it's because I could not. I wouldn't be able to sleep at night if I didn't produce something that day. Do you know what I mean? It's like,
and this is the other trick of perfectionism, right? Because your value is tied to your productivity, right? Only it isn't.
It is. Yeah.
And like our self-worth somehow gets tied up in what we've done.
Yeah. Well, it used to be money, didn't it?
But that's also a trick.
It is. You're right. You're absolutely right. Our self-worth is so much more. We just don't.
Absolutely. Okay. Anyone else got any questions about any of the strategies or techniques that we covered?
I've got a question. Firstly, I just want to say thanks to both for sharing that vulnerability with us all. That was really nice to witness and experience that. And a lot of it, I feel, resonates with me, Sam. Some of the things that you were saying there, beating yourself up, that self-talk, that then reflecting in your energy, the narrative we have with ourselves is can be quite paralyzing at times. And you know, the strength comes by opening up, as you did to your mother-in-law. And I've done that actually, and actually found that through those conversations, not necessarily gotten what I wanted out of that conversation. And so, you know, through conversations with yourself, learn to use techniques like non-violent communication, and communicating to people and really expressing what your needs are through that conversation. And actually, that's really changed things for me. It's massively to get more out of that conversation. But I guess if you've got any other tips for everyone on the call, you know, taking that leap of faith and that step forward, because I think that's really important, that first step, and just having confidence to keep bashing away, because you might not get what you need from those initial first conversations that are productive, because that's what happened to me. And I just needed somebody else to step in and say, hey, have you tried this?
I don't want to just jump in, George, because I talked a lot a minute ago.
What I found helpful is to become clear with myself first, also on what I believe my needs actually are. What is the motivation behind the dynamic that I'm pushing, unfortunately, and what is this very young part, well, now a very old part, but it started when it was very young. What is it trying to achieve through this dynamic, and what's a more mature way of getting that? And for me, what I realized is that in its very essence, it's you know, love and affection and connection. That's what I'm seeking. And the way that I've learned to receive that is through performing well and creating results. But that's not really a good strategy for me. Right? So working out what the needs are has helped me a lot. And I remind myself that when I do talk about these expectations and find out what they are, so far, whenever I took that leap of faith and I asked, it always ended up that their expectations were either a lot lower to what they dreamed up once in my head. And so I experienced a sense of relief. And alternatively, sometimes they were completely different, and very similar to Sam, what you shared today also. It wasn't about working and performing at all. It is actually about slowing down and connecting and just being with each other.
Yeah.
So that's me.
Just, I know we're almost out of time, but just to add really quickly onto the end of that, the other thing, so I'm a real consciousness nerd. You know, I read neuroscience and cognitive science articles for fun. And there's a fantastic book called Prometheus Now, which I've got somewhere very close to me, but of course I can't find it right now. But it talks about the levels of consciousness. And, you know, we know about the 3 layers of our brain, right? The oldest part, the brainstem, you know, the mammalian brain, and then this, you know, the newest part of our brain that gives us all this social intelligence. And I find a really helpful strategy is to know that when we have any thoughts that are, I'm not enough because I haven't done enough, I'm not lovable, I'm not, anything that's a not, anything that's this is our lowest levels of consciousness, right? This is, and it's like our ego is, it's like the 2 small pants of our like 4-year-old self that we're inhabiting. And in Prometheus Now, there's some really funny language like around the levels of the consciousness, but like you just need to recognize, you know, so when this happens to me and I get into this state of this, I go, it's my lower self. It's these psychological toxins manifesting again. And I literally think, lighten up. How can I find playfulness in this situation? None of us are getting out of this alive, right? So life is supposed to feel good. And so that's a really powerful way of, like, when you get stuck in this smallness, so yes to everything to do with nonviolent communication and needs and all of that stuff, but also remember, like, you are loved, you are enough. And so if we come from that place, everything becomes easy.
That's an interesting point, Sam, is when you reach that enlightenment, which is great, which is recognizing that in the first place and reacting. But just before it, you would have given off a vibe, a reaction, an attitude or something to people around you, which may change and shape their expectation instantly. So we need to be mindful of that, because while you're coming to that realization, you almost need to have gone to an extreme before you realize what's happening. Do you know what I mean? Because you can't see it. If you could see it ahead, you wouldn't have the problem, would you?
Well, exactly. It's spotting it, right? It's these
point
techniques of how we spot it sooner.
The point at which you spot it is just a little bit too far already, because that's why you spotted it. You've got to recognize what impact that's just had on people around you and their expectations, and then it's an endless game. It's probably going backwards and forwards, isn't it? This is really
yes, but the point of doing the work that we're doing on us is to bring that point forward more and more and more and more.
Yes, right.
So that's the work.
Yeah.
That's the work. We are out of time, and we want to be respectful of everyone's time. And actually, lighten up, exactly. That's the goal. Thank you all so much for joining us today. Thank you very much for listening to our stories, listening to how we support each other, help each other. Sam, thank you so much again for yet another super valuable check-in. For everybody on the call here, we are very curious about your views. While we are grateful that you found today valuable and useful, we want to keep improving. So we put a little 3-question survey together. If you have any additional time, we'd be grateful if you could share your views, please. And we'll be back in a week, Wednesday, 12 o'clock, and would be delighted if you could join us again. And if you found this valuable and can think of someone who might also get benefit from it, we do encourage you to send it on. Bring your friends. Sam, any other closing words you'd like to share with the group?
No, just to say thank you so much. And just echoing really the sentiment of Al, really, that this is about how we elevate and how we inhabit more of our best self, because we don't have to stay stuck in the smallness. And that's what this is all about, really.
Yes.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
For being here today.
Thank you all very much. Have a great week. If you could join us again, see you on Wednesday, 12 o'clock.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thank you.